For a long time, I believed that keeping a family happy simply meant staying quiet. That if I stayed silent long enough, if I worked hard enough, everything would eventually be fine. But the harder I tried, the more I felt like just a shadow in my own home. Until one day, I decided I would no longer sacrifice my peace just to keep others comfortable. This is the story of how I learned to set boundaries, stand my ground, and reclaim my voice. My name is Julia. I'm 27 years old and I work at a small interior design firm in Seattle. My job is busy, but I love it. It's one of the few things in my life that I actually got to choose for myself. As for the rest, well, I hardly had a voice in my own family. I have an older sister named Melissa. She's 4 years older than me, married, and has 3 sons, triplets, all 6 years old. Melissa is the kind of person who naturally makes the world revolve around her. And for some reason, my parents always thought that was perfectly acceptable. As for me, I was always the backup plan. The babysitter when I was free, the babysitter when I was exhausted, and even when I tried to enjoy myself, somehow I got pulled right back into playing the role of the ever-available aunt. Last year, we planned a family vacation to the Oregon coast, a trip I was genuinely excited about. I requested time off work early, eager to stroll along the beach, visit the seaside cafes, and finally attend an art exhibit I had been missing for years. Mom promised she would book hotel rooms for the whole family and that this time I could really relax. It sounded perfect, at least in theory. But when we arrived, I found out I would be sharing a room with all 3 boys, while Melissa and her husband had their own private room with the balcony overlooking the ocean. I barely had time to react before Mom handed me the key and smiled. "The boys love you, Julia. They won't be any trouble. Really, no trouble at all." That first night, one of the boys cried over a missing teddy bear. Another ran circles looking for the TV remote. The third asked me 5 separate times if he could have a midnight snack. I was exhausted and barely slept. I lay awake in the pitch-dark room, listening to heavy breathing and little snores, wishing I could just disappear. The next morning, I tried to carve out just 1 hour for myself to finally visit the art exhibit I had been dreaming about. But as soon as I got dressed, Melissa texted, "Where are you going? Josh has to leave. Can you watch the kids for a bit?" That bit turned into almost 3 hours. When I brought it up to Mom later, she simply smiled and said, "You're staying here for free, sweetheart. It's only fair you help a little." I wanted to scream, "Free? I'm not freeloading. I have a full-time job. I paid for my own bus tickets. I used PTO just to be here." But every time I pushed back, all I got in return were disapproving looks and passive judgment. I felt like a stranger in my own family. Throughout the whole trip, I only made it to the beach once. Meanwhile, Melissa posted daily updates from spas, cafes, and even a foot massage parlor. And me? I spent most of my time wiping cookie crumbs, changing the boys' clothes, and answering endless Aunt Julia questions. I didn't say much back then. I simply packed my things quietly and, when the trip ended, made a silent promise to myself there wouldn't be a next time. But I was wrong. This year, another family trip was planned, and my parents acted like everything would unfold exactly the same. No one asked for my input. They just sent the itinerary and a quick message, "Summer trip. We'll all go together as usual." I stared at the group chat, my hands trembling slightly. Did they really think I would slip back into the babysitter role again? I started typing my response. This time, I wouldn't stay silent. As I stared at Mom's latest message, "This year's trip will be so much fun, Julia. You're joining us, right?" I already booked 2 rooms, one for the kids, one for the adults. I took a deep breath and replied, "Thanks, Mom, but this year I'll drive separately. I've already booked my own room." Less than 3 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Julia, what are you saying? Why would you book your own room? We've already arranged everything." I stayed calm. "Mom, I want my own space. Last year, I barely had a minute to myself. I need an actual vacation." There was a long pause. Then her voice tinged with disappointment. "But that means you're separating from the family. Melissa will have to manage the kids on her own. Who's going to help when she needs a break?" I answered steadily. "I'm not a nanny, Mom. I have a job. I earn my own living. I'm an adult, and I'm not repeating last year's mistake." That night, Melissa sent me a long, emotional text. She said she was overwhelmed, exhausted, and felt betrayed that I wasn't stepping up like before. She reminded me that I was still single, still child free, so helping out was the least I could do. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to breathe, to avoid answering in anger. But when I reread the part where she said, I just wanted us to have a fun family vacation, and now you're acting like you've been mistreated. Something inside me broke quietly. I set the phone down and felt something inside me crack. A few days later, Dad called. He wasn't angry, just concerned. Are you really planning to go separately? Yes, Dad. I booked a hotel nearby, but it's my own room. I'll still join in for group activities, but I want the rest of the trip on my own terms. You know Melissa is really upset, he said. I know. And I used to be really upset too, Dad. Really upset. But no one ever seemed to notice. I thought he might try to convince me otherwise. But instead, he just sighed. I understand. 3 days later, Melissa sent a message to the family group chat. There was no mistaking the tone. Enjoy your personal vacation, Julia. But don't expect the family to be happy if you choose freedom over family. You can't do that. I didn't respond. Instead, I added extra privacy protections to my hotel booking. I mapped out my entire itinerary: a coastal craft workshop, a sunrise hiking trail, and of course, an afternoon at my favorite art gallery. This trip wouldn't be about babysitting or swallowing down disappointment. I had spent nearly all of my 20s trying to make everyone else happy, trying to keep the peace, while my own needs were pushed aside again and again. But not this time. This time, I was going to be heard. The night before the trip, Mom sent one last message. We'll be waiting for you at the rest stop as planned. Even if you're not coming with us, we still hope you'll meet us there. I read it in silence. I didn't hate them. I just refused to keep playing the role that had drained me for so many years. At dawn, I left. The air was crisp and cool. My suitcase sat neatly in the back seat. My favorite playlist played softly. I smiled. For the first time, I was heading somewhere for myself, not for anyone else. No matter what happened, I wouldn't let anyone push me back into a supporting role again. This trip was mine, and I would live every moment of it. As soon as I checked into the hotel, my phone rang. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I took a deep breath and answered, Where are you? Melissa's voice was cold. I just checked in, I replied, keeping my voice calm. A private room? Yes. I told you already. Melissa let out a dry, humorless laugh. Julia, are you really doing this? Turning our family vacation into your personal getaway? I'm still participating in group activities, I said slowly. But I have the right to rest in my own way too. I can't believe this, Melissa snapped. I'm juggling 3 kids here. Josh is away for work, and Mom and Dad are getting older. Who's going to help me if you just disappear? I closed my eyes, centering myself. Melissa, I'm not disappearing. I'm just refusing to be a free babysitter like last year. I'm not 19 anymore. But you're still single. No kids. No real responsibilities but yourself. Can't you sacrifice a little, Julia? Her voice grew sharper, laced with accusation. You have so much free time, and I'm just asking for a little help. Is that really too much? I gripped the phone tighter. I am not the backup plan for your exhaustion, Melissa. I have a job, a life of my own. I need rest too. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Melissa started crying. I'm exhausted, Julia. I haven't had a good night's sleep in years. You get freedom, and I'm trapped. And you can't even sacrifice a little? My heart sank, but I stood my ground. You chose motherhood, Melissa. The first, respect that. But you can't expect me to sacrifice my life because you're unhappy with your choices. So now it's all about you? No, I said firmly. It's about knowing my limits. And I've learned that if I don't protect them, no one else will. The call ended in silence. I set the phone down, my heart pounding with emotion. I knew Melissa would run straight to Mom and that the storm wasn't over yet. An hour later, Mom called. She didn't yell, but her voice was heavy with disappointment. Julia, what are you doing? Melissa is really hurt. Couldn't you be a little more flexible? I answered slowly. Mom, I was flexible last year. I sacrificed my time, my energy, and my freedom. I didn't even get enough sleep. And through it all, you never once asked if I was okay. You only asked if I could help Melissa. Mom went quiet. I love this family, but I'm tired of being treated like a temporary solution to everyone else's problems. If that's all I'm worth on this trip, then I don't need it. Mom sighed. Julia, you've changed. No, Mom, I've grown up. I wasn't sure if they truly understood that, or if they just thought I was rebelling. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down under family pressure. And this time, I wasn't saying yes just to keep the peace. That night, I walked alone along the beach. The sunset painted the sky gold. The ocean breeze played with my hair. And for the first time, I felt something rise quietly inside me. Peace. Freedom. I realized I might disappoint others, but for once, I wasn't betraying myself. I never thought I'd share something so personal online, but after all the tense calls and texts, I felt suffocated. I needed to get it out, not to complain, but to find some peace. I created an anonymous account on Reddit, found a subreddit for everyday life stories, and I wrote. I shared about last year's family vacation, how I was crammed into a room with 3 kids, while my sister had her own private room. How my family assumed that just because I wasn't married or a mom, I must have endless free time to serve others. I kept all the details vague, no names, no locations. At the end of the post, I asked, am I wrong for wanting a real vacation for myself? I never expected it to explode the way it did. Within hours, there were hundreds of comments, and almost all of them were on my side. Some people said I had been way too patient. Others said I should have set boundaries a long time ago. Many shared their own stories where sacrifice was treated as a duty and independence was labeled as selfishness. I read every single comment. I felt both relieved and sad. Relieved that I wasn't alone. Sad that so many of us had been pushed into playing a supporting role in our own lives. Then something happened that I never saw coming. Melissa found the post. She called me at 6 a.m. the next morning while I was sitting on the hotel balcony, sipping coffee and watching the sunrise. Did you write that? Her voice was sharp, cold. I stayed calm. You recognized it? How could I not? You think you're anonymous? You described everything. Everyone knows it's about me. I didn't name anyone, I said, but you made me a joke in front of thousands of people. Do you know how many people called me selfish? I didn't make them say anything, Melissa. They reacted to the truth. There was a pause. Then she started crying, not from hurt, but from rage. Julia, you destroyed Mom's image. You humiliated this family in front of the world. I answered plainly. Mom has always cared more about appearances than emotions. For her, it's always been about looking good, never about actually being good to her children. 3 hours later, Mom texted, "Did you really do it? Did you post about our family online?" I replied simply, "Yes, Mom, because if I didn't speak up, no one would have listened." At first, she was furious. She called me ungrateful, accused me of hurting my sister. But then she started reading. Not just the post, but the comments too. Words from strangers, clear and unbiased. That evening, Mom called again. Her voice was softer this time. I didn't realize people would see it that way. I asked, "How many times did I tell you, Mom?" But no one listened until someone else said it. After that call, I didn't hear anything from Melissa. But Dad called. "Your mom and I just spoke with Melissa. We all need to have a serious conversation. But I want you to know I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner." I froze. I couldn't even remember the last time Dad apologized for anything. That night, I got a text from someone unexpected, Josh, Melissa's husband. "I'm sorry I let you be taken advantage of. I'm talking to Melissa. She needs to change." For the first time in years, I felt like someone in the family actually saw me. Not out of duty, not for the sake of keeping peace, but because they saw the truth. 2 days after my post went viral, Mom called again. "Julia, the vacation is canceled." I froze again. Not from shock, but from a wave of unexpected emotions. Part of me felt relieved. Another part felt deeply sad. I had dreamed of having a vacation just for myself. But instead of finding freedom, I was paying the price for the truth being exposed too quickly, too loudly. Mom said, "Melissa's not speaking to anyone. Josh is upset and went to stay with his parents. Your dad and IWE need time to think." That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. Things had escalated far more than I realized. That evening, Josh texted again, "I want to meet in person." Just you and me. We met at a small cafe near my hotel. Josh arrived right on time, looking tired but clear-eyed. There was none of the awkwardness I was used to at family dinners. He sat down and said immediately, "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." I knew Melissa had control issues, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't have to ask what he meant. I knew he was talking about the money. I answered, "I don't blame you, but it's hard to believe you didn't notice." Josh shook his head. "She told me she gave you the money, described even leaving envelopes on the kitchen counter. Every time I asked, she had an excuse. But when I checked our bank statements and confronted her, Melissa admitted she only gave you money a few times for pizza. The rest, she kept." I just nodded. No more anger, only deep disappointment. "I love Melissa," Josh said, "but I'm not going to let her walk all over you just because you're quiet." I looked him in the eyes, "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure she apologizes properly, and she's going to pay back everything she owes you." I didn't answer right away. Mom's old words echoed in my mind. In a family, sometimes you just have to put up with things. But this time I knew I wasn't standing my ground out of selfishness. I was finally choosing to love myself first. The next morning, Melissa showed up at my hotel. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she was holding an envelope. Josh stood behind her, arms crossed, silent. Melissa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for taking advantage of your kindness, for lying, for turning a family vacation into a way to control you." She held out the envelope. "This is everything I owe you." Josh went through every single expense. I didn't open it. I just looked at her and asked, "Do you think things can ever go back to the way they were?" Melissa shook her head, "No. And maybe that's for the best," I said quietly. I felt the corner of my mouth lift. Not quite a smile, maybe something more bittersweet. Melissa added, "I need help." Josh made me start seeing a therapist. I agreed. "But I'm not sure I can fix everything," I answered slowly. "You don't have to fix everything in one day. But if you can start by respecting others, especially the ones who stay quiet, that would be a good beginning." Melissa nodded. For the first time, she didn't seem like the powerful older sister. She just looked like a woman trying to find her way back after too many wrong turns. This vacation hadn't gone how I expected. But somehow, it gave me more than any beach party or sunset ever could. It gave me clarity, it gave Melissa a mirror, and it gave my family a chance to change, or at least to start learning how. 3 weeks after the first vacation was canceled, Dad called. He didn't say much, just made a gentle offer, "Julia. Your mom and I want to take you out to dinner. At Pine's your favorite place. This Saturday?" I hesitated for a second, then nodded, even though they couldn't see it. Maybe, after everything, we all needed a dinner. No fighting, no blaming, just a new beginning. That evening, when I walked into the restaurant, Mom stood up first and pulled out my chair for me. That had never happened before. Dad gave an awkward little smile, like a small town teacher fumbling through a lecture. Before the appetizers even arrived, Mom said, "We're sorry for dismissing your feelings, for giving you burdens you never should have had to carry." I looked at her. For the first time, she didn't seem towering or distant. Not physically, but emotionally, she was speaking from her heart, not from her title as parent. "We're planning another trip," Dad added. "This time, you can travel separately, stay separately, and only join the activities you want. No one will ask you to babysit. We promise." I asked carefully, "What about Melissa?" Mom glanced at Dad, then answered, "She's continuing therapy." Josh convinced her. And honestly, she's starting to realize she needs to change. I didn't respond right away. I thought about all those years I had compromised, taken on responsibilities that were never mine. Part of me was still scared all these promises would vanish like morning mist. But another part of me wanted just this once to believe. "All right," I nodded. "But I'm driving myself, booking my own room. And if anyone tries to push me back into babysitting, I'll leave. No warning." "We understand," Dad said. Mom nodded too. A week later, the family group chat came back to life. This time with a new name, Beach Trip Reset. Everyone tried to keep things light. Even Melissa just sent a smiley face emoji, no bossy texts, no demands. I quietly booked a hotel about half a mile from the main family spot. Close enough for activities, far enough for peace. On the morning of the trip, I woke up early. I made coffee, packed my bags, and drove out of the city before sunrise. No one called to rush me. No texts from mom asking, "Are you on your way yet?" No reminders from Melissa. For the first time, I felt like a true adult in my own family. When I arrived, I checked into my hotel. I asked the front desk to keep my room information private, unless there was an emergency. The receptionist smiled. Lots of guests request that. "You're smart," I smiled back. I had learned setting boundaries isn't rebellion, it's self respect. That afternoon, we met at a seafood restaurant by the beach. Everyone was there. Melissa showed up with Josh and the three boys, and for the first time, she brought a professional nanny along, a cheerful, energetic woman named Ava. "Thanks for coming," Melissa said. No strings attached, no guilt trips. I nodded. Maybe, just maybe, something really had changed. Throughout dinner, no one brought up last year. No one asked me to feed the kids. No one asked me to take them to the bathroom. I sat next to Dad and told him about a boutique hotel project I was working on. And he listened, really listened, as if what I had to say mattered just as much as anything Melissa could have said. When dinner ended, I quietly made my way back to my hotel. No one tried to stop me. No one followed me. When I opened my room door, I finally felt something I had been searching for over so many years: real peace. On the second day of the trip, I woke up in my quiet room. Soft morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. I brewed some coffee, turned on gentle music, and sat on the balcony with a new book I'd picked up. For the first time in years, my vacation wasn't starting with kids banging on the door or someone shouting my name down the hall. Everything was calm. After a relaxed hotel breakfast, I got a text from Mom. "We're heading to the coastal park this afternoon. Would you like to join?" I replied simply, "I'll stop by if I'm free. No promises, no pressure, no guilt." Around 10 a.m., I visited a local art gallery, a place I had dreamed of seeing since last year. I wandered among the paintings, studying each brushstroke carefully. And for the first time, I felt this vacation truly belonged to me. As I left the gallery, planning to grab coffee by the beach, my phone rang. It was Ava, the nanny Melissa had hired. "Hi, Julia. I'm so sorry to bother you, but Melissa asked if you could watch the boys for about 15 minutes. She said it's an emergency." I didn't respond right away. A chill ran down my spine. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Ava, you're doing a great job," I said slowly. "But I am not the babysitter. If Melissa has an emergency, she needs to plan ahead or find another solution." "I understand. I'm just doing what she asked. It's okay. Thanks for calling," I said before hanging up. Immediately after, I texted Josh. "Your sister just tried to pass the kids off to me again, this time through Ava." 2 minutes later, Josh called back. His voice was tight with frustration. "Thanks for telling me. I'll handle it." That afternoon, I arrived at the coastal park a little late. The energy had shifted. Melissa avoided looking at me. Josh played soccer with the boys. Mom walked over, holding a lemonade. "We heard what happened earlier. I'm sorry." Melissa should have known better. I just nodded. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to stay true to myself. While the family rested under the trees, Melissa finally spoke. No sarcasm, no blame, just a simple sentence: "Thanks for not making a scene." I looked at her, calm and steady. I didn't need to raise my voice to make someone realize what shouldn't be done. I had said enough. Josh gave a small, silent nod, an unspoken agreement. From that moment on, no one mentioned just helping for a bit again. The next few days passed in peace. I walked along the beach alone, visited seaside cafes, and even made friends with a local artist. She invited me to join her outdoor painting session. Whenever there were group activities, dinners, trips to the aquarium, beach barbecues, I joined on my own terms. I participated happily, without being tied down. I didn't avoid my family. But I also didn't let anyone drag me back into my old role. On the last evening of the trip, the family gathered on the beach. The sunset painted the waves gold. Melissa sat next to me for the first time, without her eyes glued to her phone or chasing after the kids. She said quietly, "You really have changed, and I think I'm starting to learn how to accept it." I smiled without saying anything, because I knew real change doesn't come from promises. It comes from saying no firmly, even when others don't understand. This vacation wasn't perfect, But for the first time, I felt truly free around my family, not because they had completely changed, but because I had changed first, because I had finally held my boundaries. After the trip, I returned to my design studio and my regular routine. On the surface, nothing looked different. But deep inside, I knew something had shifted forever, not just inside me, but within my family too. One afternoon, while reviewing drafts for a hotel project, I received a short email from Josh titled, Update on Melissa. The first opened it, not knowing what to expect. This morning, I took Melissa to her first therapy session, Josh wrote. It wasn't easy, but she listened. Josh shared that the therapist had said something that left both him and Melissa speechless. Being a mother doesn't mean losing your identity. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to make others carry your responsibilities. Melissa cried through half the session. Josh added, I'm sorry it took this long, but thank you. If you hadn't held your ground, Melissa might have never looked at herself honestly. I didn't respond right away. Not out of coldness. Not out of anger. I just needed a quiet moment to feel the weight of real change. The kind of growth that comes from the very people who once made you feel invisible. 2 weeks later, Melissa sent me a text. Would you like to have lunch with me? I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a small cafe near the park where she usually took the kids to play. No kids this time. No interruptions. Melissa arrived on time, no requests, no complaints. She started, I've been to 4 therapy sessions now. And each time, I realize how much I've never truly listened. Not to Josh, not to mom and dad, and especially not to you. I let her continue. I got used to thinking everything should revolve around me. When I had kids, I panicked. Instead of asking for help the right way, I just demanded it, especially from you. I nodded slightly. I understood. But understanding didn't mean accepting. Melissa gave a small, sad smile and, you shouldn't have accepted it. Josh just hired a full-time nanny. Ava will help with the boys' schooling and daily needs. You won't have to help me anymore. I just hope that someday you'll see that I'm trying to change. I looked at her for a long moment. I saw the tiredness, yes, but also humility. A rare kind of sincerity that only comes after a long string of mistakes. From that day forward, things began to shift slowly, but steadily. Mom started calling me every week, always beginning with, Are you free? Not, Can you help me with something? Dad sent me pictures of the woodworking projects he built himself, instead of asking me to do them for him. And Melissa, she was still learning how to be a sister, not a commander. Sometimes her old instincts resurfaced, but now I knew how to hold my boundaries. And Melissa was learning to stop before crossing them. I kept a safe distance, not out of bitterness, but because I was rebuilding a bridge. A bridge with sturdier foundations and clearer edges, wide enough for both sides to meet, but only if we both chose to. When autumn arrived, I received a handwritten card from Melissa. One sentence, written in the same round handwriting I remembered from middle school. Thank you for not staying silent forever. I kept that card for a long time. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I understood this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. From now on, I wouldn't be the only one listening without being heard. And for me, that was a beautiful start to any real change. About a month after returning from the vacation, I received an unexpected message on Instagram. It was from Emily, the woman who worked at the small bookstore on the corner where I often spent my weekends. Hi, Julia. I don't know if it's coincidence or fate, but I read that Reddit post and I know it was you. My heart skipped a beat. Not from shame, but because I had never expected someone from my real life to connect with a story that started in frustration and ended in self-reflection. Emily had always caught my attention, not because she was flashy, but because of the way she patiently introduced each book with a gentle smile. Always kind, never superficial, like someone who could truly see people without needing many words. I replied to her message. I guess that post traveled farther than I expected. She messaged back almost immediately. It spread because it was real. Because so many people have been Julia in their families but never found the words to say it. We planned to meet the following weekend at an outdoor art exhibit downtown. Nothing formal, just 2 people walking side by side, talking about art, books, and the boundaries everyone should learn to set early on. I didn't tell Emily how many nights I had lost sleep over careless comments from my family, But I shared with her how I had once learned to stay silent and later had to relearn how to speak up. She listened without judgment and said something I will never forget. You're not selfish, Julia. You're just loving yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how my relationship with Emily began, slowly. No pressure, no rushing, no need to heal each other. Just being present, listening, and respecting one another. As for my family, things were moving in the right direction, in their own way. Melissa continued with therapy. Our conversations were no longer tense. Once, she even sent me photos of watercolor paintings she had made in an art class. Instead of trying to control, I was learning how to let go. Josh was more involved with the kids now. Every weekend, he took them out on his own, giving Melissa some time to breathe, or simply to be herself again. My parents, they had learned something powerful from my prolonged silence. They no longer sent messages asking, "Can you help us?" Instead, they said, "If you want to join us for dinner, we'd love to see you." It might seem small, but to me, it was an entirely new way of breathing in a relationship that once suffocated me. I still kept my own room whenever I visited. I still said no when I was tired, and I still chose peace over pleasing everyone. One early autumn night, Emily leaned her head against my shoulder on the wooden bench in my backyard. The soft porch lights wrapped us in a quiet, warm glow. She turned and asked, "Do you think your family really understands now?" I smiled and squeezed her hand gently. "They don't need to understand everything," I said, "as long as they respect it. And this time, I think they finally do." My story isn't a miracle. There was no dramatic transformation, no tearful ending where everything got fixed overnight. But it was real. It was a journey where I learned to stand my ground and learned that loving others starts with first being kind to yourself. If someone asked me what changed the deep-rooted dynamics of my family after all these years, I would simply say, I stopped saying yes to things that broke me, and I started living like I was worthy. My story isn't just about reclaiming the right to rest. It's a reminder that prolonged silence can become a burden. That being the easy one in the family isn't love, if it means losing yourself. Today, I have my own life, a healthy relationship, and a family that's slowly learning how to love without control. I'm no longer the free babysitter. I am myself, whole and independent. What do you think about Julia's journey? Was she too harsh? Or did she finally do the right thing to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, boundaries, and finding your voice. Sometimes, the journey toward growth doesn't begin with a loud victory. It starts the first time you dare to say no. Choosing to love yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation for every healthy relationship you'll ever build. If you're struggling to find your voice, remember, you deserve to be heard. You deserve to be respected. And real change doesn't require a miracle. It starts with small, steady steps, just like this.